Stories from around the world. Brave Hendrik. A story from Holland. Hendrik hurried out of school and ran along the top of a dike. This was one of the great walls which protected the low-lying farmland of Holland from the North Sea. Hendrik's father had said to him, "Your grandfather helped to build these dikes. Now I work on them, mending any holes or gaps made by the wind and waves. If a sea broke through, it would drown all the animals, flood our houses, and ruin our farms. We must always watch the dikes." Hendrik ran on along a dike he had never explored before. On one side, the tide was creeping in. On the other side was his uncle's farm. It was very quiet that evening, just the sound of the waves lapping against the dike. Hendrik was turning around to go home when he heard a noise. He listened for a moment. He could hear a trickle of water. "I wonder what that is. I'd better have a look," he said to himself. He scrambled down the dike and ran along it until he found where the noise was coming from. There was a very small hole in the dike, and the water was trickling through. Hendrik knew that soon the tide would come in and the sea would quickly make the hole bigger and bigger, washing away clay and stones until the water gushed through it. "Help! Help!" he shouted. But there was no answer. He stared at the hole, wondering what to do. If I run home and tell my dad, I may be too late when he gets here, and the water will be roaring through by then. I must do something. He looked at the hole, and suddenly he had an idea. He pushed in his finger, and gasped with relief when no water came out. He had stopped the leak. Leaning against the dike, he shouted, "Help! Help!" until he was hoarse. Hendrik was shivering in the wind. His finger in the hole was so cold that he couldn't feel it. It was growing dark, and he could hear the sea thundering against the other side of the dike. He was beginning to feel really scared. "Please, please, someone come and help me." Hendrik didn't know how long he had been crouching against the dike. "They must have missed me by now," he said to himself. "They must be looking for me." He thought of his warm, snug house, his mother getting supper, and wiping away a few tears. "I'm not going to give up," he said. "I'm nearly 10, and I'm not going to give up." Shivering with cold, he wrapped his coat tighter around him. When it was so dark that Hendrik could only hear the wind howling and the waves dashing against the dike, he saw a light bobbing along above him. "Help! Help me!" he croaked. The light stopped, and a man with a lantern looked down. "Who's there?" he said, climbing down. He held up the lantern and looked at Hendrik. "What's a little lad like you doing out here on the dike at this time of night?" he growled. Hendrik, trembling with cold, managed to tell him all about the trickle of water. "Oh, hold on a little longer and I'll get some help very soon," said the man. At that moment they heard voices calling along the dike, and they could see the light of lanterns. It was Hendrik's father, his uncle, and many men from the village who were out searching for Hendrik. "Here he is, here's your lad," shouted the man. "I was late coming home from work and found him down here by the dike." The man then told him all about the trickle of water. "We'll soon fix that," said Hendrik's uncle, and he and the other men set to work at once. Hendrik's father rushed down the dike and picked Hendrik up. He wrapped the shivering boy in his coat before carrying him home. "Don't worry about the dike anymore. It's mended now," he said. "What you need right now is a good hot supper and a warm bed. You're a very brave boy, and I am very proud of you. You did the right thing. You saved us all from a lot of very bad trouble." This happened a very long time ago, but in Holland they still tell the story of brave Hendrik.